Most men speak and are forgotten, but a few, very few, know how to speak in such a way that women lose their reason, their defenses, and even their pride. Today, we solve a problem men have faced for centuries. Why do your words fall flat, while another man's words make one fall mad with desire? The answer lies in a secret strategy whispered by Niccolò Machiavelli himself, to speak not as a man but as a master of power. Throughout history, men have fought wars, built empires, and shattered kingdoms with steel. Yet the most dangerous weapon ever forged is not iron, nor fire, nor stone. It is the human tongue. Words can raise an army without banners. They can dismantle loyalty without spilling blood, and they can capture a heart without a single touch. Machiavelli knew this truth well. The man who masters words can govern not only nations, but also the most delicate kingdom of all, the mind of a woman. Consider this: when a man speaks without strategy, his words drift into the void. They vanish like smoke lost to the wind. But when a man speaks with power, when each syllable carries weight, his words linger. They echo in the memory, replaying themselves long after the moment has passed. This is the difference between ordinary men and extraordinary men. The ordinary speak to be heard, the extraordinary speak to be remembered. Most men believe that communication is about honesty, about pouring out their heart. But Machiavelli would laugh at such navel. To him, truth is not spoken. It is shaped, molded, and delivered only when it serves your advantage. Words are not confessions, they are instruments. And the skilled man plays them like a master musician, striking chords that stir the deepest emotions. Women, in particular, are not conquered by brute declarations. They do not lose themselves in logic or argument. They are moved by tone, by rhythm, by the aura man wraps around a speech. A single phrase, whispered with confidence, can bypass every wall of doubt. A carefully chosen silence can say more than an hour of explanation. It is not the length of your speech that captivates, but the sharpness of its delivery. Imagine two men standing before the same woman. One says, "You are beautiful," with trembling voice, eager to please. The other leans in and says nothing for a moment, letting the silence tighten like a bowstring, then speaks softly. "There is something about you, something dangerous." Which man will she remember? Which voice will echo in her mind when the night grows silent? It is not flattery that enslaves. It is mystery woven into the cadence of words. Machiavelli warned that men often waste their strength where they need only strategy. The fool shouts his affection, hoping sheer volume will gain attention. The wise man whispers, knowing that the quieter he speaks, the more she leans in to listen. Words, when used without restraint, lose their value. But words released with calculation are like coins of pure gold. Rare, precious, unforgettable. A man's speech must be like the architecture of a fortress, strong, deliberate, and carefully constructed. Each word is a stone, and the careless piling of stones creates nothing but rubble. But the precise placement of each phrase builds walls of influence that no resistance can overcome. When you speak to a woman, you are not merely exchanging sounds. You are building a palace inside her imagination, brick by brick, until she finds herself dwelling in the world you created. This is the essence of verbal power, to craft not a statement, but an experience. A man who speaks with authority can transform an ordinary moment into a memory that burns forever. He does not ask for attention, he commands it. His words are not scattered seeds, they are arrows aimed at the heart, arrows dipped in fire. And yet, most men squander this gift. They speak too quickly, too much, too eagerly. They reveal everything in the first few breaths, leaving nothing to wonder, nothing to chase. But women are drawn to the chase, to the riddle, to the unfinished sentence that keeps them awake, replaying it over and over, asking themselves, what did he mean? This is not accident, it is design. Machiavelli understood that the pause is as powerful as the phrase. Even kings have fallen by the strength of a speech. A ruler can lose his throne not because his army was defeated, but because his words failed to inspire loyalty. In the same way, a man loses his chance with a woman not because he lacks wealth or beauty or stature, but because his speech is ordinary. The man who speaks like all others is forgotten like all others. But the man who speaks as though he commands the stage of history, he is remembered, feared, desired. Women crave a voice that seems larger than life, a voice that hints at secrets, a voice that suggests strength cloaked in velvet. They crave words that do not simply describe reality, but reshape it. If you tell her the sky is beautiful, she nods and moves on. But if you tell her the sky looks as though it envies her presence, she carries that image with her, unable to release it. It is not the truth of the words that matters. It is the effect they leave behind. Powerful speech is not random, it is calculated. It is the art of knowing when to hold back, when to strike, and when to let silence speak in your place. Every great manipulator in history understood this principle. Caesar, Alexander, Napoleon, they did not merely fight battles, they seduced entire nations with the theater of their words. And Machiavelli studied them all, distilling their mastery into one timeless principle: words are a ruler's greatest army. Now imagine applying this not to nations, but to one woman sitting before you. Imagine wielding your voice as a weapon and a caress at once. Every sentence carefully sharpened, every pause deliberately placed, every word chosen not to reflect truth but to ignite desire. She does not see it happening. She only feels it, a pull she cannot resist, a spell she cannot escape. For what is seduction, if not the conquest of the mind through language? Desire is not born in the heart. It is born in the mind, nurtured in the imagination, and brought to life through suggestion. Machiavelli understood that to rule the passions of another, you must not appeal to what they show, but to what they hide. A woman's desire is never satisfied by what is given directly. It awakens only when it is provoked, teased, and left incomplete. And so the man who speaks with mastery must learn not to satisfy curiosity at once, but to inflame it until it consumes her entirely. Understand this: women do not crave endless words of admiration. They hear them from countless mouths, from men who believe repetition will one day make them stand out. But flattery is a dull blade, and dull blades never cut. What they crave is power disguised as charm, authority cloaked in velvet. They want to feel that the man before them is not seeking their approval, but granting them the privilege of his attention. In this inversion lies the psychology of desire, the art of making her chase the very thing she thought she already possessed. Machiavelli would tell you that human beings are driven more by fear and hope than by truth. Women are no exception. They are stirred by the fear of losing your attention and by the hope of gaining more of it. When you speak, never give the whole of yourself. A single glance, a cryptic phrase, an unfinished compliment. All these plant uncertainty, and uncertainty is the root of desire. For certainty kills pursuit, while uncertainty feeds it. Picture this: a man who showers a woman with predictable praise. She grows bored, knowing what comes next before he even opens his mouth. But another man pauses, studies her, and says, "There is something about you that unsettles me." She will not forget this. She will replay it in her mind, wondering what it means, craving the completion of that thought. In this way, her imagination becomes your ally, working tirelessly in your absence, crafting fantasies you never even spoke. Desire is not logical. It does not respond to facts. It does not bow to reason. A woman does not desire because you are wealthy, handsome, or powerful. She desires because you make her feel. She desires because you awaken parts of her soul that she cannot easily explain. A man who understands this does not argue his value. He demonstrates it through the emotions he evokes. His presence lingers not in what he declares, but in what he stirs within her. Women crave a man who appears unshaken, a man whose words carry a certainty that her own cannot match. When he speaks, it must feel as if he has already measured the weight of her soul, as if he has seen something in her that others have overlooked. This is not flattery. It is recognition, delivered with authority. When you make her believe that you perceive her essence, you give her a sensation no other man has granted. And with that, she becomes bound to your voice. Machiavelli knew that the greatest rulers inspire both devotion and fear in equal measure. The same balance fuels desire. Speak too gently, and you become predictable, unchallenging, easily dismissed. Speak too harshly, and you breed resistance. But if you weave charm with danger, allure with dominance, you create an intoxicating tension she cannot resolve. It is this tension that makes her restless, that keeps her mind tethered to you even when you are not present. Think of the court of Florence, where words were sharper than daggers. A man who revealed too much lost his mystery. A man who revealed too little was ignored. The masters of influence walked the fine line in between, revealing just enough to spark curiosity, withholding enough to remain enigmatic. Women, like courtiers, are drawn to the puzzle. They desire the man who feels like a book half opened, a story they must keep reading to uncover. Notice how desire grows strongest not in fulfillment, but in anticipation. A woman does not remember the speech that gave her everything. She remembers the one that left her haunted. She remembers the pause that made her heart race, the suggestion that lingered, long after the words faded. Machiavelli's genius was not in telling people what they wanted to hear, but in telling them just enough to make them crave more. And this same principle governs seduction. Do not think that desire comes from beauty alone. Beauty may draw the eye, but it does not chain the soul. What chains the soul is fascination. The feeling that she has encountered something rare, something dangerous, something she cannot quite name. Your words must become the source of this fascination. They must create the sense that you are not simply another man, but a force she cannot control, a presence she cannot ignore. The psychology of desire demands contrast. Speak with authority, but mix it with unpredictability. One moment let your tone carry warmth, the next let it sharpen with subtle command. One moment lift her with intrigue, the next let her feel the slight sting of challenge. This back and forth creates the very fire she cannot resist. For desire is not built on comfort, but on tension, and tension is sustained only when you control the rhythm of your speech. A woman desires not only the man who pleases her, but the man who unsettles her in a way that awakens her hidden depths. She seeks the voice that both soothes and disturbs, the presence that both embraces and eludes. Machiavelli would say, give her just enough certainty to anchor her, but enough uncertainty to keep her chasing. Let her think she understands you, then reveal something that unravels her assumptions. Keep her in the balance of clarity and mystery, and her desire will never fade. For the heart is not conquered by declarations. It is conquered by the invisible chains of anticipation, by the imagination set aflame, by the power of words that wound and heal in the same breath. This is the psychology of desire, to awaken in her a hunger not for what she sees, but for what she cannot grasp, for what she longs to uncover yet never fully possess. Seduction is not an accident. It is not born in the careless rush of words, nor in the desperate attempt to impress. Seduction is an art, and like all great art, it requires patience, design, and mastery. Machiavelli knew that the man who controls his speech controls not only his own destiny, but also the desires of those who listen. When a man learns the art of seductive communication, he ceases to be ordinary. His words no longer fall like dust upon the ground, they fall like rain on parched earth, awakening everything they touch. To speak seductively is not to flatter endlessly. It is not to drown a woman in praise or bury her in meaningless chatter. That is the way of the weak. The art lies in precision. Each word chosen as a blade, each phrase sharpened to pierce deeper than mere compliments ever could. When you speak, you must create an atmosphere, a world in which she feels both safe and unsettled, drawn in and left wondering. The seducer does not aim to fill silence. He commands it, shaping it into a stage where even pauses speak louder than sentences. Consider the weight of silence. Most men fear it. They rush to fill every gap, spilling their thoughts without measure, and in doing so, they expose their lack of control. But the man who dares to pause, who lets silence stretch like a bow before it is released, shows dominance. He forces her to wait, to anticipate, to lean in closer. That silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It is the unspoken declaration, I control the rhythm, not you. And in that rhythm, she finds herself trapped, suspended, unable to break free. Your tone must be deliberate. Too fast, and you betray nervousness. Too soft, and you lose authority. Too loud, and you show insecurity. But slow, steady, and unwavering, this is the voice of command disguised as charm. It tells her that you are not rushing for her attention, because you already own it. Every word must be carried on this current of certainty. And within that certainty, you must allow the occasional crack of vulnerability, carefully placed, to remind her that what you are revealing is not a performance, but a dangerous glimpse into something rare. Compliments, when used, must never be ordinary. To tell a woman she is beautiful is to tell her nothing at all. Others have told her the same, and their words have vanished. But to tell her that her presence unsettles you, that her gaze carries weight she cannot imagine, that she possesses a quality you cannot fully name. This strikes deeper. It is not a compliment. It is a challenge, a mystery. And it is within mystery that desire grows. Machiavelli believed that the most powerful ruler was not the one who revealed all his strength, but the one who concealed enough to keep others guessing. The same principle governs seductive communication. You must never be entirely readable. Your words should invite her closer, yet keep her searching. Speak as though there is always more hidden beneath the surface, more that she has yet to discover. For it is not revelation that binds her. It is the pursuit of revelation. Think of communication as a dance. If you lead too aggressively, the dance collapses. If you lead too passively, she grows bored. But if you guide with subtle strength, letting her feel as though she is part of the creation, she becomes absorbed in the rhythm. In this dance, your words are the steps, your pauses the movements, your tone the music that drives the entire performance. The man who masters this dance becomes unforgettable. There is also power in suggestion. Do not describe everything directly. Hint, imply. Let her imagination complete the picture. For the imagination paints in brighter colors than reality ever could. A single phrase, carefully left unfinished, can ignite fantasies that no detailed explanation could ever rival. Say just enough to awaken thought, and allow her to chase meaning in her own mind. In that chase, she becomes complicit in her own seduction. The art of seductive communication also demands contrast. If you are only serious, you become heavy. If you are only playful, you become trivial. But if you weave seriousness with lightness, warmth with distance, charm with authority, you create unpredictability. And unpredictability keeps her hooked, never knowing what will come next, never able to settle into certainty. This tension keeps her attention locked on you, her curiosity alive, her emotions stirred in ways she cannot control. Remember, seduction is not about words alone, but about the energy behind them. Speak as though you are not begging for approval, but as though you are granting an audience. Let your posture, your eyes, your stillness support the words that leave your lips. A man whose body and voice are aligned in calm dominance needs no theatrics. His presence does the work for him. And when he finally speaks, his words cut through the noise of every other voice that has tried and failed before him. Machiavelli once wrote that men are judged more by appearances than by truth, because most people see with their eyes and few with their minds. In seduction, the same holds true. A woman may not remember the exact phrasing of your speech, but she will remember the feeling it left within her. She will remember the authority that wrapped around each word, the mystery that lingered after you finished, the silence that pressed against her heart more heavily than noise ever could. Seductive communication is, above all, about control. Control of tone, control of timing, control of revelation. You must always remain the one guiding the experience, never the one being guided. If she feels you are trying to win her approval, the spell is broken. But if she feels you are allowing her into a realm others are denied, her desire grows. Speak not as a man seeking acceptance, but as a ruler bestowing favor. In this way, your words become more than sound. They become an empire in which she willingly surrenders. Manipulation is a word that most men fear, yet it is the very key that separates those who are remembered from those who are forgotten. Machiavelli knew that to influence others, you must never reveal your hand too openly. Power is not in what you declare, but in what you implant, quietly and visibly, until it grows inside the other person's mind, as if it were their own thought. This is the essence of Machiavellian manipulation. Not brute force, not desperate persuasion, but subtle guidance, the art of bending without seeming to touch. When you speak to a woman, understand that her heart is not conquered by grand gestures or endless promises. Her heart is conquered by the illusions you weave, by the realities you shape in her imagination. Manipulation does not mean deception for its own sake. It means choosing words with precision, creating meaning that serves your purpose. A man who speaks plainly is a man who gives away his weapons. A man who speaks strategically, however, holds every advantage. The first rule of manipulation is never to aim for the surface. Do not speak only to her ears, speak to the hidden corners of her soul. A woman's desires are layered, and few men take the time to understand them. She craves attention, yes, but not the kind offered freely by every fool. She craves attention that feels costly, attention she must earn. When you grant it sparingly, you increase its value. This scarcity is not an accident, it is a design, and within that design lies her growing obsession. Machiavelli himself taught that people are not moved by truth, but by appearances. To manipulate, then, is to cloak your words in the appearance she longs for. You do not tell her what you feel, you tell her what will make her feel. You become a mirror, reflecting her hidden dreams, her secret fears, her unspoken doubts. She begins to think you understand her in ways no other man ever has. But it is not understanding that binds her. It is control of perception. Think of manipulation as planting seeds. You never shout commands, you sow suggestions. You allow them to grow inside her mind until she mistakes them for her own. For example, instead of declaring, "You are falling for me," you plant the seed. "I can tell when someone is trying not to show their feelings." You say it lightly, but the idea lingers, wrapping itself around her thoughts, forcing her to question, to reflect, to wonder if she is indeed revealing something she tried to hide. Soon she convinces herself of what you implied. And once she believes it, it becomes her truth. The second rule of manipulation is to master ambiguity. Never give the full picture. Speak in phrases that can be taken in more than one way, words that force her to interpret, to decode, to seek meaning. The moment she begins analyzing your speech, replaying your sentences in her head, you have gained ground. She becomes an accomplice in her own manipulation, working tirelessly to find the meaning you left incomplete. Her imagination, once again, does the work you do not need to. But manipulation also thrives on contrast. Sometimes you must withdraw in order to create pursuit. Sometimes you must withhold in order to create hunger. Machiavelli observed that men value most what they fear to lose. The same applies in the realm of desire. If you are always present, always giving, always speaking, your words lose their sharpness. But if you retreat, if you allow absence to stir uncertainty, your return becomes magnified. She does not merely listen when you speak again. She clings to every word, for it feels scarce, precious, earned. Control is the heart of manipulation, not control in the sense of chains or commands, but control in the sense of steering emotions, guiding perceptions, shaping the very reality she experiences. When she is joyful, you amplify it. When she doubts, you deepen it. When she feels desire, you let it sharpen by silence before offering release. The man who can guide emotions in this way becomes not merely a participant in her life, but the author of her story. She begins to feel that her feelings for you are inevitable, as if they were born within her naturally. But in truth, they are cultivated, shaped by the hand she cannot see. Machiavelli would insist that sincerity is a tool, not a duty. You may use sincerity when it benefits you, but never let sincerity rule you. Speak truths only when they serve your advantage. For women, like all people, prefer the appearance of honesty over the burden of it. When you appear open, she relaxes her guard. When you appear vulnerable, she feels a unique power over you. But both are illusions, carefully staged, allowing you to guide her responses without resistance. And do not underestimate the weapon of denial. When she seeks certainty, deny it. When she asks for clarity, give her mystery. For certainty breeds comfort, and comfort breeds indifference. Mystery, however, breeds pursuit. Deny her complete knowledge of your mind, and she will chase it endlessly, trying to fill the gaps you leave open. That chase is itself a form of captivity, binding her tighter to the spell of your presence. The greatest manipulators throughout history were not those who shouted commands, but those who whispered suggestions. They ruled not by declaring power, but by planting ideas that others believed were their own. In seduction, you must do the same. Your words must never feel forced. They must flow as if natural, as if inevitable, as if they were born from her thoughts and not yours. When she believes she has chosen you freely, when she believes her obsession is self-created, your manipulation has reached perfection. Machiavelli once said that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. In the art of seduction, the highest mastery is to inspire both at once. Let her feel warmth in your words, but also danger. Let her sense closeness, yet never reach the full depth. This balance keeps her suspended, trapped in the cycle of yearning, never fully satisfied, never able to let go. It is within this cycle that true power exists, the power to control without force, to dominate without resistance, to manipulate without ever appearing to do so. You have now seen the strategy in full, the hidden art that Machiavelli himself would whisper only to those worthy of wielding power. Words, when sharpened, become weapons greater than swords. Desire, when understood, becomes a chain stronger than iron. Seductive communication, when mastered, transforms an ordinary man into a ruler of hearts. And manipulation, when executed with precision, ensures that power is not given. It is taken, invisibly, inevitably. Most men stumble through life speaking without thought, praising without effect, loving without command. They wonder why their voices vanish like echoes in an empty hall. But the man who learns these secrets, the man who dares to speak with strategy, does not merely talk, he rules. His words linger like shadows, his presence grows even in his absence, and his influence spreads beyond the moment into memory, into obsession, into destiny. This is the Machiavellian way, never to chase, never to beg, but to command with velvet words and invisible chains. To speak in such a way that women do not merely listen, they surrender. To master not just the language of speech, but the language of power itself. And those who wield this art wield the very weapon that makes kingdoms rise and empires fall. The weapon of the tongue, sharpened by strategy, guided by desire, cloaked in mystery, and crowned with control.